heart never believed in ghosts. She believed in exhaustion, long hours, and the kind of tiredness that made people imagine things. But when she stood in front of the Bowers estate that gray November evening, the sky bruised purple, the air heavy with mist, something about the place whispered run. The house was enormous, old, and beautifully cruel. 2 stories of stone and shadow, its windows tall and glassy like eyes that had seen too much. An iron gate creaked open as she arrived, her little red hatchback humming uncertainly on the gravel driveway. Emily had answered an online ad. Live-in nanny needed, isolated countryside home, immediate start, room and meals included. For a 27-year-old drowning in student debt and heartbreak, it felt like a lifeline. At least that's what she thought. Mrs. Bowers greeted her at the door, elegant, but with a certain emptiness behind her smile. "Emily, dear, we're so glad you could come." Her voice was polite but distracted, her eyes flickering nervously toward the staircase behind her. Then came Lily, a tiny 6-year-old with dark curls and solemn eyes, far too old for her age. She clutched a ragged stuffed rabbit and didn't smile. "Hi, Lily," Emily said softly, kneeling to her level. The girl whispered, "Are you staying in room 9? Emily blinked. "I don't know yet." "Why?" Lily didn't answer. She just turned and ran up the stairs. The tour of the house was both grand and unsettling. Every hallway smelled faintly of burnt wood and lavender. Family portraits lined the walls, but in many of them, the faces had faded or blackened with age, as if someone had tried to erase certain people. Her room, indeed labeled room 9, was on the 2nd floor, at the end of a long corridor that groaned with every step. It had a large bed, a vanity, and an old wardrobe that seemed to breathe dust each time it opened. On the bedside table was a porcelain doll. Its dress was pristine, but its glass eyes had tiny cracks. A note lay beside it. "She doesn't like the dark." Emily smiled uneasily, assuming it was a leftover prank from the previous nanny. Dinner was awkward. Mr. Bowers was mostly silent, eating in small mechanical motions. Mrs. Bowers spoke about the house, the garden, and the rules. No guests, no leaving after dark, and always locked the nursery door at night. When Emily asked why, Mrs. Bowers hesitated. "Just superstition," she murmured, forcing a laugh. "This old place makes strange sounds after sunset." Lily barely touched her food. She kept glancing toward the dark hallway, clutching her rabbit tighter. When Emily gently asked her what was wrong, Lily whispered, "She comes when the lights go out." That night, Emily unpacked her suitcase and tried to shake the feeling of being watched. The house was quiet but not peaceful. It listened. Every creak, every sigh of the wind outside felt deliberate. She lay in bed reading when she heard it, soft humming. A lullaby. Coming from the hallway, it was faint, almost beautiful, but distinctly sad. The kind of melody that sounds like it remembers pain. Emily froze. Maybe Mrs. Bowers or Lily? She stepped into the hallway. The sound stopped. The corridor stretched into dim amber light from an old bulb flickering above. Everything was still, except the wardrobe door in Lily's room. It was slightly open. Emily tiptoed in. The little girl was fast asleep, rabbit tucked under her chin. The wardrobe stood open just enough to reveal darkness inside, and from that darkness came a whisper. "Shh, she's sleeping." Emily stumbled back, heart racing. She flicked on the light. Nothing. Just clothes. Silence. Her rational mind screamed, "It's stress, it's nothing." But her body, every instinct, felt cold terror. She closed the wardrobe firmly and whispered, "Good night, Lily," as she turned off the light and left. She heard a small voice from the bed, but it wasn't Lily's. "Good night, Miss Emily." When Emily reached her own room, she locked the door. She couldn't sleep, couldn't shake the image of the wardrobe or that voice. At 3:07 a.m., she woke again to a soft knock at her door. 3 slow taps, She opened it. Empty hallway. But there on the floor was a burnt photograph. It showed Lily as a baby, in the arms of another woman, a woman in a nanny's uniform, face half burnt, smiling faintly. On the back of the photo, written in faded ink, Nanny Agnes, lost to the fire, 2014. And in the silence of room 9, the porcelain doll's head turned just slightly toward her. Morning came pale and thin, as if the sun itself was afraid to touch the Bowers house. Emily woke with the photo still on her nightstand, its edges blackened, the nanny's half-smile frozen in soot. She told herself she'd dreamt the whisper, the knock, the doll turning its head, yet the unease clung to her like smoke. Downstairs, the house felt too quiet. The ticking grandfather clock echoed through the hall like a heartbeat. Mrs. Bowers stood at the stove, stirring tea that had long since gone cold. "Did you sleep well?" she asked without looking up. "Not really. This place creaks all night." Mrs. Bowers gave a thin smile. Old homes remember everything that's happened inside them. The sentence hung heavy between them. Lily appeared, her hair tangled, the stuffed rabbit dragging across the floor. "Miss Emily?" she said softly. "Did she visit you?" Emily froze. "Who, sweetheart?" "The nanny, the one who sings." Mrs. Bowers' spoon clattered. "Lily," she snapped, "enough of that nonsense." The little girl shrank back, eyes wide. Emily's instinct flared. This wasn't nonsense to Lily. Later that day, while Lily napped, Emily explored the upstairs hallway. She traced her fingers along the wallpaper, noticing faint scorch marks that had been painted over. At the end of the corridor, near room 9, a locked door caught her eye. The handle was cold metal, scarred by rust. "Storage," Mrs. Bowers said suddenly behind her. Emily jumped. She hadn't heard her approach. "Please don't go in there. It's unsafe. The floorboards are weak." Her tone left no room for argument, but curiosity was louder than fear. That evening, Emily sat with Lily and read bedtime stories. The child seemed calmer when Emily hummed softly, the same melody she'd heard that first night. When the story ended, Lily asked, "Do you know her song?" Emily blinked. "Who taught you that tune?" "She did," Lily whispered. "She sings when she's lonely." As Lily drifted to sleep, Emily looked toward the wardrobe. The door was shut tight, yet the faint scent of lavender and smoke filled the room. In the hallway, a draft moved past her like someone exhaling. The light bulb flickered. Then she heard it again, soft humming, the same lullaby echoing faintly through the walls. Emily followed the sound of the humming down the corridor. Each step she took made the wooden floor moan beneath her feet. The air was colder now, sharp, almost metallic. The melody seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. As she turned the corner, she saw the light beneath the storage door flicker, a faint orange glow, as if someone held a candle on the other side. "Mrs. Bowers?" Emily whispered. No answer. Her fingers brushed the old handle. It was warm. The door didn't open, but something inside moved. A shuffle, a sigh, the soft thud of something falling over. Then silence. Emily stepped back. "It's nothing," she whispered to herself. "Old houses settle. That's all." But the unease in her stomach said otherwise. The next morning, Emily decided to ask about the photograph. Over breakfast, she gently slid it across the table toward Mrs. Bowers. "Who is this?" The woman's face drained of color. She didn't touch the photo. "Where did you get that?" "It was outside my room last night," Emily said carefully. Mrs. Bowers closed her eyes, whispering something that sounded like a prayer. She was Lily's first nanny. "Agnes Rowe, there was a fire, a terrible accident." "An accident?" Emily asked. "She saved Lily's life," Mrs. Bowers said, voice breaking slightly. "But she didn't make it out." Her hands trembled as she took a sip of tea. Please don't mention her to Lily. She doesn't remember. It's better that way. Emily nodded, though her gut told her that Lily remembered everything. That afternoon, as clouds swallowed the sun, Emily took Lily outside for a walk in the overgrown garden. The house loomed behind them like a silent witness. "Lily," Emily asked gently, "what do you remember about your old nanny?" The little girl kicked at the dirt. "She was kind. She used to braid my hair and sing to me, but Mommy told me she went to sleep in the fire." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Sometimes I still see her by the window," Emily swallowed. "What window?" "The one in your room." A chill crept down her spine. "My room?" Lily nodded. "That's where she stood when the fire came. That's where she burned." That night, Emily couldn't sleep. Rain lashed against the windows, thunder rolling in the distance. The storm seemed to rattle the entire house. At exactly 3:07 a.m., she heard it again. 3 soft knocks at her door. She froze, staring at the handle. Then slowly it turned. The door creaked open, revealing Lily standing there in her nightdress, eyes half closed as if sleepwalking. "Sweetheart," Emily whispered, kneeling down. "Are you okay?" "She wants to come in," Lily murmured. Emily's breath caught. "Who does?" "The nanny. She said you shouldn't lock her out." Before Emily could respond, every light in the hallway flickered and went out. The blackout plunged the corridor into absolute darkness. For a heartbeat, the only sound was the storm outside. The wind clawing at the windows, rain slashing against the glass like fingernails. Emily's pulse thundered in her ears. She reached for Lily, but the girl wasn't there anymore. "Lily?" she hissed. "Lily!" A faint light flickered at the end of the hall, coming from behind the storage door. The orange glow she had seen before, now brighter. "Lily!" she shouted, running toward it. Her bare feet slapped against the cold wood. As she reached the door, she heard humming. The lullaby again, but this time it was louder, clearer. "Hush, little one. Don't you cry." Emily gripped the handle. It was hot, too hot. The air smelled of smoke. "Lily!" She screamed again and yanked the door open. The room inside was bathed in trembling orange light. And there, in the middle of the floor, stood a woman, tall, wearing a nanny's dress scorched at the hem, her hair floating weightlessly as if underwater. Her face was pale but peaceful. Her eyes, however, were hollow black voids. In her arms was Lily, completely still, head resting on the ghost's shoulder. Emily's knees almost gave out. "Put her down!" she cried. The woman tilted her head, expression unreadable. "You took my room," she whispered. "You took my place." "I'm not," Emily stammered. "Please, she's just a child." The ghost's voice was soft, almost motherly. "She's mine." The room erupted in heat. Flames bloomed along the walls. Not real fire, but memories of it. The air shimmered with orange light and ash. Emily lunged forward, grabbing Lily's arm. The girl was freezing cold. With a desperate pull, Emily dragged her away from the spirit. The ghost let out a sound that wasn't quite a scream, more like the wail of a wounded violin, endless and agonized. "Go," Emily shouted, shoving Lily through the doorway. As they stumbled back into the hall, the flames blinked out, gone as if they had never existed. The door slammed shut behind them, rattling the walls. Emily held Lily close, trembling. "It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe." The little girl's voice was barely audible. She said she'll come again, when the lights go out. By morning, everything looked normal. The door to the storage room was once again locked. No scorch marks, no heat, no sign it had ever been opened. Mrs. Bowers was pale when she saw them. "You shouldn't have gone near that room," she said. "That's where it started." "Where what started?" Emily demanded. Mrs. Bowers looked toward the stairs, voice trembling. "The fire. The one that took her. The one that refuses to end." That night, when Emily returned to room 9, she found something new on her pillow. A single old-fashioned key. Attached to it was a note, written in neat cursive. or when you're ready to remember. As she held the key, she realized it was identical to the one that locked the storage door. And faintly from somewhere deep in the walls came the sound of a lullaby. Quiet, patient, waiting. Morning sunlight crept through the lace curtains of room 9, thin and pale, as if afraid to linger too long. Emily sat on the edge of her bed, the old brass key turning slowly between her fingers. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard that lullaby again, faint, pleading, trapped behind the walls. Downstairs, dishes clinked and Mrs. Bowers moved mechanically through her routine. Nothing looked different, yet everything felt different, as though the house itself was holding its breath. Emily placed the key in her pocket. Today, she decided, she would find out what was behind that locked door once and for all. In the kitchen, Mrs. Bowers' eyes darted to the bulge in Emily's pocket. "You found the key, didn't you?" Emily hesitated. "Yes, someone left it for me." Mrs. Bowers' spoon froze in midair. "Then she's chosen you." Her voice cracked on the last word. "What does that mean?" Emily demanded, but Mrs. Bowers just whispered, "The house doesn't forget its fire. It always needs someone to remember it for her." Before Emily could press further, Mr. Bowers entered, looking worn and gray. He avoided her eyes completely. "Stay away from that room," he muttered, and left without eating. Lily appeared a moment later, pale and quiet. She clung to her stuffed rabbit. "Miss Emily, are you leaving us?" "No, honey." Emily crouched down. "Why would I leave?" "Because that's what they all do," Lily said softly. "After they see her." That afternoon, thunderheads gathered over the hills. The world outside dimmed to the color of bruises. Emily waited until the family retreated to their rooms for an afternoon rest, then slipped upstairs. The key was cold against her skin. When she reached the locked door, the air seemed heavier, thicker, filled with the faint scent of soot. Her hand trembled as she pushed the key into the rusted lock. It turned with a slow, aching click. The door groaned open to reveal a room frozen in another time. Charred wallpaper peeled like old skin from the walls. A blackened crib sat in the corner. A half-melted music box rested on the floor, its porcelain ballerina twisted and cracked. Emily stepped inside. Her footsteps stirred ashes that puffed upward like gray ghosts. She knelt to examine the music box. When she wound it, the ballerina shuddered and began to spin. The tune, the lullaby. Suddenly, the air thickened with heat. The wallpaper seemed to ripple. A low whisper drifted through the smoke-tinged silence. "You shouldn't be here." Emily froze. The door behind her slammed shut. The door slammed shut with such force that dust rained down from the ceiling. Emily spun around and grabbed the handle. It wouldn't budge. The metal burned against her skin. The air around her shimmered and the room changed. Smoke curled from unseen flames. Shadows of furniture reassembled themselves into their former shapes. A rocking chair, a small bed, curtains fluttering in heat that wasn't really there. Emily coughed and covered her mouth. "This isn't real," she whispered. "It's just a memory." But the house answered. From the far side of the room came the sound of humming, soft, broken, desperate. A figure began to take form through the haze, a woman in a black nanny's dress, holding something in her arms. "Agnes," Emily breathed. The ghost's eyes snapped open. They weren't black anymore. They were filled with reflection, like glass catching firelight. "Why are you here?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. Agnes tilted her head slowly, almost curiously. "Because you opened the door." She stepped closer. With every step, the temperature dropped. Frost began to form along the burnt crib. "I only wanted to know what happened." Emily said. "You saved Lily. You don't have to stay here anymore." Agnes's expression softened, sorrow flickering across her scorched features. "She was my life, my reason. They took her from me, and then they forgot me." Emily shook her head. "No one forgot you. They rebuilt over my ashes." Agnes screamed, her voice distorting into a dozen echoes. "They sealed me in this room and left me to burn again and again." The walls ignited, phantom fire surging upward in slow motion. Emily staggered back, shielding her face, though the flames didn't touch her. "Every night," Agnes cried, "the fire begins anew." "And every night she calls for me, but I can't reach her." "You can." Emily's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "The child still dreams of the fire. That's how she calls me." Agnes extended a trembling hand, ash drifting from her fingertips. "Help me finish it. Free us both." The fire around them dimmed to embers. Emily saw flashes in the smoke. A baby crying, a young Lily screaming, Mrs. Bowers pounding at a burning door, and a shadowed figure, a man, striking a match. "Mr. Bowers?" Emily gasped. He started it." Agnes's face twisted in anguish. "He wanted me gone. He said I loved the child too much. Said I was taking his place." Emily's stomach turned. "Dear God." Agnes's voice softened to a whisper. "The truth is buried here, but soon it will burn again. Unless you stop him." The room shook violently. Smoke turned black and the walls began to close in. "Go," Agnes said. "Before the fire remembers you too." Emily lunged for the door, yanked the handle, and this time it opened. She stumbled out into the hall, gasping for air, slamming it shut behind her. When she turned around, the hallway was empty, but the key in her hand was glowing faintly red. Emily burst into the hallway, coughing, her heart hammering. The air outside the room was cool and still, as if the fire she'd seen had never existed. Yet the faint smell of smoke clung to her hair and clothes. She stumbled downstairs, clutching the red glowing key. In the dim light of the parlor, she found Mrs. Bowers sitting motionless, hands folded tightly in her lap. "You knew," Emily said, breathless. "You knew about the fire, about Agnes." Mrs. Bowers didn't look up. "There are things best left buried, Miss Hart. She said your husband started it." At that, Mrs. Bowers's shoulders tensed. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," Emily snapped. "He murdered her to keep his secret." A voice came from the doorway behind her. "Enough." Mr. Bowers stepped into the room, his face shadowed, eyes flat and cold. "That woman was poisoning my daughter's mind. She made Lily love her more than her own parents." Emily's voice trembled with rage. "So you killed her?" His jaw tightened. "It was an accident. She wouldn't leave. The fire wasn't meant to—" "Don't lie!" Emily shouted. "She's still here, still burning because of you." Lightning flashed outside, illuminating his face, pale, sweating, haunted. For a moment, guilt flickered there. Then it was gone. "Leave this house," he said quietly. "Now, before you end up like her." That night, Emily packed her bags. She planned to leave before dawn. But when she went to check on Lily, the child was gone. The bed was empty, sheets cold. The window stood open, curtains billowing in the storm wind. "Lily," Emily called, running through the house. "Lily, where are you?" The only answer was distant humming, faint, sorrowful, and familiar. It led her upstairs. To the locked door, the key in her pocket pulsed with heat. "No," she whispered. "Not again." But she turned it anyway. Inside, the room was no longer burnt and broken. It was whole again. Soft light filled the space, and in the center sat Lily, humming to herself as she played with the cracked porcelain doll. Across the room stood Agnes. She looked peaceful now, her dress no longer scorched, her eyes clear and full of tears. "She came back for me," Lily said simply. "She said I don't have to be afraid anymore." Emily took a step forward. "Agnes, please." "Let her go," Agnes smiled. a soft, tragic smile. "I would never hurt her, but she can't stay here with him. You saw the truth. This house will burn again, and she will be in it." The wind outside roared, thunder shaking the floor. Emily looked at the window and saw flames dancing in the distance, reflections of a fire that hadn't yet begun. "Take her," Agnes whispered. "Take her far away before he lights the match again." Emily reached out, tears streaming down her face. "Will you be free if I do?" Agnes nodded. "I'll finally rest." Emily lifted Lily into her arms. The moment she crossed the threshold, the room behind her began to fade, walls dissolving into smoke and memory. Agnes stood in the center, hands clasped, eyes turned upward as if finally seeing the light. "Thank you," she whispered. The door closed gently by itself, and for the first time since she'd arrived, the house fell silent. By sunrise, Emily's car was halfway down the misty road leading away from the Bowers estate. Lily slept in the back seat, the stuffed rabbit tucked under her chin. Emily glanced in the rearview mirror. The house stood distant and still, no smoke, no fire, just peace. Then, faintly from the radio that wasn't even on, came a soft lullaby, the same one that had haunted her since the first night. But this time, it sounded like goodbye. The road stretched endlessly through the mist, lined with dead trees that looked like blackened matchsticks against a gray sky. Emily's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter every mile. Beside her, Lily slept, face peaceful, unaware of the weight of ghosts left behind. The Bowers estate was a fading speck in the mirror, yet Emily couldn't shake the feeling it was watching her go. The radio hissed faint static, though it wasn't on. The scent of lavender and smoke still lingered in the car. "You're free now," Emily whispered, half to herself, half to the spirit she hoped had finally found rest. But the storm clouds gathering over the horizon said otherwise. By noon, she found a small roadside inn, the Silver Pines. The sign creaked in the wind, its paint peeling like old bark. Inside, the lobby smelled of coffee and old wood polish. The innkeeper, a kindly older woman named Margot, smiled. "Long drive, sweetheart?" "Longer than I planned," Emily said, forcing a grin. "Just me and the little one tonight." Margot's eyes softened as she looked at Lily, still clutching her rabbit. "You'll be safe here. We don't get many visitors since the fire." Emily froze. "What fire?" "Oh, years ago," Margot said casually. "Old mansion up the hill burned to the ground. Tragic, really. They said a nanny died saving the child." Emily's throat went dry. The Bowers estate?" Margot frowned. "No, dear, the Whitby place. Bowers sold his land long ago." Emily's stomach turned. Then whose house was that? That night she tucked Lily into bed in their small room. The rain outside fell in soft, rhythmic sheets. For the first time in weeks, Emily thought maybe they could start over. Maybe the nightmare had ended. She switched off the light and lay down, exhausted. At 3:07 a.m., the sound of humming filled the room. Emily's eyes snapped open. The tune floated through the dark, faint and familiar. "Hush, little one. Don't you cry." Her heart pounded. She sat up. "Agnes?" she whispered into the blackness. No answer. Only the slow creak of the rocking chair by the window. Lightning flashed outside. For one blinding instant, she saw a figure sitting there, the silhouette of a woman, head bowed, gently rocking, and then, as quickly as it came, the light was gone. Emily's breath caught in her throat. The storm outside rumbled, lightning flashing again, empty chair. The figure was gone. She stood shaking, her bare feet cold against the wooden floor. The air in the room had shifted. It was heavy, electric, like the moment before fire catches. Behind her, Lily stirred in bed. "Miss Emily?" "It's okay, sweetheart," Emily whispered. Just thunder, but Lily was staring past her, eyes wide. "She's here again." Emily turned slowly. At the foot of the bed stood the doll, the cracked porcelain one from room 9. Its head tilted, dress singed at the hem. Emily's heart stopped. She hadn't packed it. She'd left it in the burning house. The doll's glass eyes glinted in the dim light. Then, faintly, the lullaby began again, coming not from the air, but from the doll itself. "Hush, little one. Don't you cry. Mama's here to sing goodbye." "Agnes," Emily whispered. "Please let her go." A soft voice replied, though no lips moved. "I did. But the fire remembers you now." The windows shuddered as wind slammed against them. Rain turned to hail. The lamps flickered and died. Margot, the innkeeper, burst into the hall moments later, banging on the door. "Are you two all right in there?" Emily opened the door, pale and trembling. "There's something in the room, something that followed us." Margot's eyes widened when she saw the doll. "Oh no," she breathed. "You shouldn't have brought that thing here." "What do you mean?" Margot crossed herself. "That doll belonged to Agnes Rowe, the nanny from the Whitby fire. She used to sing that same song to the children she lost." Emily shook her head in disbelief. But then she was Lily's nanny. "The Bowers nanny!" Margot frowned. "There's never been a Bowers estate near here, love. Only the Whitby place, and that burned down more than 40 years ago." The words hit like ice water. 40 years. The house, the family, the fire. It couldn't have been real, or worse. It was repeating. Lily began to cry. "She's calling me," she whimpered. "She says I have to finish the song." Emily knelt, gripping her shoulders. "No, baby. Don't listen. It's not her anymore." But Lily's eyes glazed over, her small lips moving on their own as she sang the final verse. "Sleep, my darling, safe and sound." The room shook. The wallpaper curled as heat filled the air. Smoke seeped through the cracks in the floorboards. "The fire comes to take you down," Emily screamed, pulling Lily into her arms as flames burst to life along the walls. Margot shouted from the hallway, but her voice sounded far away, like an echo in another world. The doll fell from the bed, its porcelain face shattering on the floor, and from the pieces rose a faint image of Agnes, half translucent, reaching toward them. "Save her," she whispered. "Break the circle. Burn the song." The heat grew unbearable. Emily clutched Lily close, coughing as the smoke thickened. The wallpaper peeled like skin, and fire crawled along the ceiling beams in writhing, hungry shapes. But this wasn't real fire. It moved too slowly, too deliberately, like a living memory replaying itself. "Burn the song." Agnes's whisper echoed again, faint but pleading. Emily looked down at the shattered doll, its porcelain fragments glowing faintly like embers. Inside, beneath the splinters of painted flesh, something shimmered. A slip of old paper, blackened around the edges, a lullaby. Handwritten in looping script, Emily realized with horror that this was the source, the words that bound the curse. Agnes hadn't written the song for comfort. She'd written it to trap herself inside the fire that took her children. She snatched the paper from the ashes, flames licking her fingers. Lily stirred weakly. "It hurts," she whispered. "I know, baby. But we're almost free." Emily turned toward the fireplace, or what had once been a fireplace, now just a dark shape burning in the dreamlike inferno. She tossed the paper into the flames. The moment it caught, the world around them screamed. 1,000 echoes filled the room, children's laughter turning to cries, glass shattering, the sound of a woman sobbing beneath the roar of fire. Agnes appeared one last time, her form flickering between life and ash. Her eyes met Emily's. "Thank you for finishing the song." The flames swallowed her, then the doll, then the room itself. Everything went white. Emily woke up outside. Rain poured from a bruised sky, cold and clean. The inn behind her was untouched. No smoke, no fire. Margot stood at the door, bewildered. "You both just vanished," she stammered. Then I found you out here. Emily looked down at Lily, who slept peacefully in her arms. No burns, no soot. Just quiet breathing. The cracked doll lay beside them, now completely blackened. And silent. Weeks later, Emily and Lily moved to a small town by the coast. A new start, new air. But some nights, when the wind rose over the cliffs, Emily swore she could still hear it, faintly, drifting through the dark. Hush, little one. Don't you cry. Mama's here to sing goodbye. Only now it sounded peaceful, not a curse. A farewell. The house on Willow Creek was everything the Marsh family had dreamed of. White pillars, tall windows, a sprawling backyard lined with maple trees, and a small pond that shimmered like glass. It looked perfect in the photos, but photos never tell the whole story. When they moved in, the air inside smelled faintly of cleaning polish and something older, like perfume that had soaked too deep into the walls. "It's lovely," said Claire Marsh, running her hand along the banister. She was 34, sharp-eyed, organized, a real estate agent herself. Her husband Michael was a software engineer who rarely left his laptop. Their daughter Ella was 6, small, curious, and always a little too quiet. The house was too big for them, but Claire had insisted. "We need space," she'd said. A fresh start. Michael had agreed, mostly because she wanted it, and because he didn't want to admit how much the old apartment reminded him of the miscarriage. They hired a nanny 2 weeks after moving in. Claire was working longer hours, and Ella had begun talking to her reflection again. At first, Claire thought it was normal. Children often invent imaginary friends. But one night, as she passed Ella's room, she heard 2 voices. Both sounded like Ella. "No, you first," said one. "I did yesterday," answered the other. Claire had stepped inside. "Sweetheart, who are you talking to?" Ella smiled. "Nanny says it's rude to interrupt." Claire frowned. "What Nanny?" "The one in the mirror." The next day, when Claire told Michael, he laughed it off. "She's just playing pretend. Don't freak yourself out." But that same evening, a woman showed up at the door. She was tall, early 30s maybe, with chestnut hair tied neatly behind her head and a calm, old-fashioned smile. She wore a dark blue dress that looked almost vintage. "Mrs. Marsh," she said softly. "I'm here about the nanny position." Claire blinked. "I didn't post an ad." The woman smiled wider. "Ella said you might need me." Before Claire could react, Ella came running down the stairs and froze halfway. Her small face lit up. "You came back." Claire stood frozen at the bottom of the stairs, unsure whether to be alarmed or relieved. The woman's presence felt strangely, right? Like she already belonged there. "How do you know my daughter?" Claire asked cautiously. The woman smiled faintly. "Children are good at finding me. My name's Miss Wynne." Something about her tone, gentle but cold beneath the surface, made Claire's stomach tighten. Michael came down a moment later, wiping his hands on a towel. "We weren't expecting anyone," he said politely. Miss Wynne nodded. "Of course. But Ella asked for me. She said her last nanny went away and she's been so lonely." Claire and Michael exchanged a glance. They had never hired a nanny before. That night, Miss Wynne stayed for dinner. She was polite, quiet, and oddly formal. The kind of woman who spoke like she'd stepped out of a different decade. When Ella spilled her juice, Miss Wynne reached over with a napkin and smiled. "Careful, darling. You wouldn't want to make a mess for your reflection to see." Ella giggled, then whispered something only Miss Wynne could hear. Both of them laughed softly, like they were sharing a private joke. Claire felt a chill creep up her spine. After dinner, Claire walked Miss Wynne to the door. "I'll have to discuss this with my husband before we make any decisions." Miss Wynne tilted her head slightly, the porch light glinting off her dark eyes. "Of course. I'll come by tomorrow. I always do." Before Claire could ask what she meant, the woman turned and walked away down the long driveway. Her shadow stretched unnaturally tall against the gravel, then vanished before she reached the street. That night, Claire dreamed of mirrors. In the dream, every reflection moved half a second too late and smiled wider than she did. She woke to find her own bedroom mirror fogged from the inside, though the air was cold. Someone had traced a single word into the glass. Soon. The next morning, Miss Wynne was back. She was already in the kitchen when Claire came downstairs. "I hope you don't mind," she said cheerfully, pouring juice. "Ella let me in." Claire blinked, disoriented. "How did you—" Miss Wynne's tone was warm but firm. "It's important for a child's nanny to feel at home." She handed Ella her breakfast, then turned toward the hallway mirror. For a brief moment, her reflection didn't follow. It just stood there, staring straight at Claire with eyes that looked like polished obsidian. Then it smiled. That night, Claire couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Miss Wynne's reflection, the way it had smiled independently, as if mocking her. Down the hall, Ella's laughter echoed, soft and dreamlike. Claire pushed open her daughter's door. The room was dimly lit by the nightlight shaped like a crescent moon. Ella sat cross-legged on the rug, staring into her vanity mirror. "Sweetheart?" Claire whispered. Ella didn't move. Claire stepped closer. Her daughter's reflection was smiling, but Ella's real face wasn't. The reflection tilted its head just slightly. Then it lifted its hand and waved. Claire's heart nearly stopped. Ella's hand stayed still. "Ella," she said again, her voice trembling. Her daughter blinked, as if waking from a trance. "Mommy, why are you crying?" Claire hadn't realized she was. She grabbed Ella's hand and turned her away from the mirror. And that's when she saw it. Behind the reflection of the two of them stood Miss Wynne. Her face was half-shadowed, her eyes hollow and glassy like a mannequin's. She leaned down beside the mirrored Ella and whispered something inaudible. But Claire felt the words burn through her chest. "Don't turn away. We're almost ready." The next morning, Michael left for work early, unaware of the storm brewing in his own home. Claire spent the day trying to find any trace of Miss Wynne, phone numbers, applications, anything, but there was nothing. No records, no contact info, no social security listing. She wasn't in any system at all. By evening, Claire had almost convinced herself she'd imagined it all, until she found the family photo on the fridge. She froze. Miss Wynne was standing in it, right behind Ella. That night, Claire moved a blanket into Ella's room. She refused to leave her alone. The girl slept soundly, clutching her rabbit. Around 2 a.m., a soft tapping woke Claire. It was coming from the mirror. At first, just a single tap, tap, tap. Then faster, louder, a hand pressing from the inside. Claire stumbled up, heart racing. "Miss Wynne?" she whispered. The glass shimmered like liquid. Behind it, Miss Wynne appeared, her face calm, her eyes endlessly deep. "You wanted help with your child," she said softly. "I'm only doing what you asked." Claire backed away, shaking her head. "I never—" The reflection cut her off. But she did. The glass rippled again. And Claire saw Ella's reflection step closer to Miss Wynne's, while Ella herself kept sleeping peacefully in bed. Then, with one smooth motion, Miss Wynne reached out and took the reflection's hand. The mirror cracked. Morning light filtered through the cracked mirror. Thin, web-like fractures ran across the glass, catching the sun like veins of silver. Claire hadn't told Michael about what happened in the night. She couldn't. How could she explain that a woman had spoken to her through a mirror? Ella seemed normal at breakfast, cheerful, humming a tune that sounded eerily familiar. "Miss Wynne taught me a new song," she said between spoonfuls of cereal. Claire's stomach turned. "Sweetheart, when did you see her?" Ella smiled. In the shiny parts, the day passed in uneasy silence. Every reflective surface in the house felt alive. The TV screen, the microwave door, even the glossy marble countertop. Sometimes Claire caught movement where there shouldn't have been any. A hand brushing by, a shadow turning too slow to be hers. That evening, she covered the mirrors with bed sheets. Ella protested, pouting. She won't like that. Who won't? My nanny, Ella said simply. She said you can't keep her out forever. Claire's throat went dry. You mean Miss Wynne? Ella shook her head. Not anymore. She has a new name now. Claire knelt, trying to keep her voice steady. What name? Ella leaned in and whispered, Mother. At 3 a.m., the sound of glass shifting woke Claire again. The covered mirrors rustled as though breathing. One by one, the sheets began to slide off, pulled by invisible hands. From the darkness of the hallway came a reflection, bright for a moment, then gone. Claire grabbed a flashlight and stepped forward. The beam hit the hallway mirror. Her own reflection stared back. But something was wrong. Its eyes were black, and behind it stood Miss Wynne, her hands resting gently on the mirrored Claire's shoulders. You're not taking care of her, Miss Wynne said softly through the glass. She needs someone who sees her, Claire whispered. Stay away from my daughter. Miss Wynne smiled faintly. Then stop looking. The mirror shattered outward. The sound was deafening. Claire screamed and shielded her face as shards exploded from the hallway mirror, scattering across the floor like ice. The flashlight flickered, casting broken light against the walls. When the air cleared, the mirror frame was empty, just splintered wood and hanging threads of silvered glass. But reflected across the shards, scattered on the ground, Claire saw something impossible. The hallway still had its mirror inside the reflections. In the broken pieces, the other hallway still stood untouched. And within it, Miss Wynne was still there, smiling, holding Ella's hand. She's with me now, Miss Wynne said from within the shards. You don't need to worry anymore. No, Claire shouted, sweeping the shards aside. But the reflections clung to her skin like oil, tiny glimpses of another world, another version of her daughter standing too still, too quiet. The next morning, Michael found her in the hallway, sitting among the broken glass, pale and shaking. Claire, what the hell happened here? She tried to explain, but the words came out broken. She's inside it. She took her. Michael frowned, gently pulling her to her feet. You're exhausted, Claire. You've been under so much stress. Don't you dare, she snapped. Don't you make me sound crazy, he sighed, rubbing his temples. I'll fix the mirror, you just rest. But when he went to sweep the shards into a box, he froze. Every reflection on every piece showed a different angle of the house, and in each one, Miss Wynne stood just behind him. By noon, the house felt colder. The heater was running, but the air carried a strange, damp chill. The family photos on the wall began to change. So gradually, Claire almost missed it. In each picture, her own face looked slightly off. Smiling too wide, eyes too dark, and Ella's head was always turned toward the nearest reflection. That night, Claire heard footsteps, 2 sets, soft and synchronized. She crept to Ella's door, peeking through the crack. Her daughter sat by the mirror again, but this time there were 2 Ellas. One sat on the carpet, clutching her stuffed rabbit. The other stood inside the mirror, hands pressed against the glass, whispering. They looked identical, except the reflection's eyes were completely white. Come on, the mirrored Ella whispered. She's waiting. Who? The real Ella asked. Mother. The mirror began to glow faintly like moonlight rippling through water. The reflected room seemed deeper now, more like a tunnel than a reflection. Claire burst in, grabbing her daughter away from the mirror. The other Ella smiled, her lips moving silently as cracks spread across the glass. And in the shimmer behind her, Miss Wynne's face emerged again, no longer human, her eyes endless pits of silver. It's too late, she said. You've already looked too long. The mirror went dark. The silence that followed felt heavier than the breaking glass. The mirror was black now, its surface dull and still. Claire's own reflection was gone. It was like looking into a dead eye. She held Ella close, whispering, "It's okay, sweetheart." "It's over," but the child didn't answer. Her small body felt cold against Claire's arms. Claire pulled back. Ella blinked once, too slow. Her eyes were not brown anymore. They were pale gray like smoke. By morning, Michael had gone to work again, claiming a critical deadline. The house seemed quieter, but the quiet didn't feel safe. It felt listening. Ella sat at the table, drawing with her crayons. The pictures were strange. Mirrors, faces, and a tall woman standing behind a little girl. "What are you drawing, honey?" "Us," Ella said. "But the real us," Claire forced a smile. "And where are we?" Ella pointed at the mirror on the far wall. "Right there," Claire turned slowly. The mirror's surface was fogged, though the air was cold. As she stepped closer, faint outlines appeared, shapes that matched the drawing exactly. Her knees went weak. That night, she locked every mirror in the house in the basement. Bathroom mirrors, picture frames, even the screen of the old television. She wrapped them in blankets and nailed the door shut. When she turned around, Ella was standing in the hallway, head tilted. "You shouldn't do that," she said softly. "Sweetheart, it's just until..." The little girl smiled and Claire's stomach dropped. The smile wasn't Ella's. It was too knowing, too still. "I told you," the girl whispered, her voice echoing with two tones. "She can see through me." Claire stumbled backward. "Where's my daughter?" The child blinked. "She's where she belongs." Then she tilted her head toward the dark television screen behind Claire. The screen flickered to life, static first, then color. On it, Claire saw Ella, the real Ella, crying, pounding on glass from the inside, and behind her, Miss Wynn's hand rested gently on her shoulder. "You can have her back," the voice said through the static. "All you have to do is look." The lights in the house dimmed. The television's glow filled the room like a doorway. Claire felt herself leaning toward it. Then the screen went black. The house didn't feel like a home anymore. Every corner carried the faint hum of electricity, like the sound of a whisper just out of reach. Claire moved through the rooms in silence, feeling watched. It had been 3 days since she'd seen her daughter's reflection trapped in the TV screen. Since then, the mirrors had stayed quiet. Too quiet. Michael had noticed her unease, but dismissed it as exhaustion. "You need rest," he'd said again. "You're seeing things that aren't there, but they were there." Claire could feel them watching every move she made. That night, she dreamed of the basement door. In the dream, it was open. The mirrors she'd wrapped in blankets were uncovered again, leaning upright in a perfect circle, and in the center of the circle sat Ella, rocking back and forth, humming Miss Wynn's lullaby. "Hush, little one, don't you cry." When Claire stepped closer, Ella looked up. Her skin shimmered like glass. Her eyes were hollow and silver. "Come find me, Mommy," she whispered. "It's almost time." Claire woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. The clock read 3:33 a.m. From downstairs came the faint sound of something moving, something dragging. She grabbed the flashlight from her nightstand and crept to the staircase. The sound was coming from below, the basement. Each step creaked like a warning. When she reached the basement door, she saw the nails she'd hammered in 3 days ago, all lying neatly on the floor. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, something glimmered faintly in the dark. "Ella?" Claire whispered. A soft giggle echoed from the shadows. "You found me." The beam of her flashlight cut through the dark, and there they were. Every mirror she'd hidden had been unwrapped and placed upright again, arranged just as in her dream. Their surfaces shimmered faintly, reflecting not the basement, but another world, lit by cold blue light. And in that other world, Claire saw herself, Her reflection stood in the center of the circle, staring back, but not moving. Behind it, Miss Wynn's shadow leaned close, whispering into its ear. "All she has to do," Miss Wynn said softly, "is step through." Claire's breath fogged in the cold air of the basement. The mirrors around her pulsed faintly, as if alive, each one breathing in sync with her. "Ella," she whispered again. From the nearest mirror came a faint voice. "Mommy, help me." Her daughter's reflection appeared, tiny palms pressed against the inside of the glass, eyes wide with fear. Claire rushed forward, fingertips trembling as they touched the surface. "It was cold, so cold it burned. Hold on, baby." "Mommy's here. She won't let me go," the voice said. "She said you belong here now." Claire froze. "Who said that?" "Miss Wynn." A hand, pale and thin, slid into view behind Ella's reflection. Long fingers rested gently on the child's shoulder. Miss Wynn smiled. "It's rude to keep the door open and not come inside, Claire." The mirrors around her began to hum louder, the reflections rippling like water. "You want your daughter?" Miss Wynn whispered. "Then follow." The floor beneath Claire's feet vibrated. The reflections deepened, colors draining from the room. The air shimmered, and then everything went still. She reached toward the mirror again. This time, her hand didn't stop at the surface. It passed through. It felt like pushing through liquid ice. She gasped, pulled forward by a silent current. Her vision blurred, sound stretched thin, until she stumbled out the other side. The world beyond the glass was a twisted reflection of her home. Everything looked almost right, but wrong in tiny ways. The furniture was reversed. The air shimmered faintly blue, and the walls seemed to breathe. Behind her, the mirror she came through dissolved into mist. The silence in this world was heavy, thick, like a vacuum pressing on her ears. Claire's footsteps echoed far too loud on the cold floor. "Ella?" she called. The sound bounced back distorted, her own voice warped into something unrecognizable. "Mommy?" she spun. Ella stood at the end of the hall, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Claire ran to her, dropping to her knees, wrapping her daughter in her arms. "You're okay," Claire whispered, tears spilling. "I've got you." But Ella didn't hug her back. Slowly, the girl lifted her face and smiled. "I know," she said softly. "You came just in time." Her eyes flashed silver. From the walls, hundreds of faint reflections began to move, faces pressing through the surface, whispering. They weren't just her reflection. They were versions of her, each one slightly different, twisted by fear, by anger, by guilt. Miss Wynn appeared behind them, stepping forward with slow, deliberate grace. Her black dress flowed like smoke, her face half-shadowed. "Mothers always come for their children," she said, "but they never ask why their children were chosen." Claire stood, shielding Ella behind her. "Give her back." Miss Wynn's smile widened. "You gave her to me the moment you looked too long into the glass." The mirrors pulsed again, this time like a heartbeat. The air inside the mirror world rippled as if alive. Claire backed away slowly, her hands shaking. The little girl behind her, her daughter, was smiling too calmly. "Ella," Claire whispered. "Sweetheart, it's me. We have to go home." The girl tilted her head, eyes flashing like mercury. "We are home, Mommy." Miss Wynn's laughter echoed across the glass walls, soft, rhythmic, almost tender. "Don't you see, Claire? This world is the reflection of truth. It's where all the pieces of you hide." The mirrored versions of Claire on the walls began to move closer, each whispering words she couldn't quite understand. One covered in ash, one holding a crying infant, one screaming silently. "What are they?" Claire asked, her voice cracking. Miss Wynn stepped closer, her reflection flickering in every surface. "They're every version of you that wished for a different life. The ones who stayed when Michael left, the one who never had Ella, the one who never looked away from the mirror." She paused, her face inches away, eyes glowing faintly white. You think you came here to save her, but you came because you wanted to know. Claire felt the ground tremble. The reflections began chanting softly, a rising hum that made her skull ache. Stop, she screamed. Give her back! Miss Wynne smiled faintly and snapped her fingers. The reflection of Ella behind Claire twisted, her body jerking unnaturally. The girl's face shifted between her daughters and something older, something darker. She's already half mine, Miss Wynne said. And soon you will be too. The walls turned to water. The mirrored world began folding in on itself, reflections spinning into a storm of glass and light. Claire grabbed the real Ella. She could feel her heartbeat now, fast and terrified, and ran toward the shimmer where she had entered. Miss Wynne's voice followed, calm and cruel. You can leave, Claire, but every reflection of you that remains will stay with me. The mirrors shattered as Claire leapt. Cold light swallowed them both. She woke on the basement floor, gasping. The mirrors were gone, only shards left scattered around her. Ella was in her arms, unconscious but breathing. Ella, honey, wake up. The child stirred, blinking up at her, her eyes brown again. Claire sobbed, clutching her daughter close. It was over, or so she thought. 2 weeks later, everything seemed normal. Michael believed she'd just fallen and hit her head. Ella was quiet but happy again. One night, as Claire tucked her in, she noticed something. Ella's stuffed rabbit lying beside her on the bed. Its button eyes gleamed faintly in the dark. Mommy, Ella murmured. Can you close the closet door? She's looking at me again. Claire froze. Who's looking at you, baby? Ella pointed. Claire turned toward the mirrored closet door. In its reflection, she saw Ella asleep, peaceful, safe, and standing right behind her reflection was Miss Wynne, smiling. We're not done yet, Claire. The house had become silent again, but not peaceful. Claire could feel it every night. The faint vibration in the walls, the hum in the mirrors, the way reflections sometimes blinked a half-second too late. Michael didn't notice. He'd buried himself in work, pretending everything was fine. Ella had gone back to school, but there was something different in her laughter now, something hollow. Sometimes, when she giggled, the sound would echo just a little too long. It started small. The hallway mirror fogged up in the middle of the day. When Claire wiped it clean, she saw not her reflection but an empty room behind her. Then, one morning, every mirror in the house was covered in fingerprints, tiny ones. Ella's hands were clean. That night, Claire sat in the living room, staring at the blank television screen. The air grew colder. The reflection in the glass flickered once, twice, and then Miss Wynne appeared. Her image was faint, like an old film reel, black and white, grainy, smiling. You didn't think it was over, did you? Claire whispered. You can't have her. You can't come back, Miss Wynne's grin widened. You invited me, Claire. The moment you looked too long, the moment you wanted to understand. That's how the mirror opens, through curiosity. The reflection shifted, showing flashes of other homes, other mothers, other children. Each one looked terrified. You're just one of many, Miss Wynne said. A reflection among reflections. Claire stood up, trembling. Then I'll destroy them all. Miss Wynne's laughter echoed through the room. You can try. The television cracked down the middle. The sound was sharp, like glass breaking underwater. From the corner of the room came another sound, a slow tapping. Tap, tap, tap. Claire turned. The hallway mirror was shaking violently. The surface rippled as if something was pressing from the other side. Ella appeared at the top of the stairs, rubbing her eyes. Mommy, she's calling again. Claire froze. Who? The lady in the glass. The mirror split. A hand, white as porcelain, long fingers stretching wide, reached through. Miss Wynne was coming back. The mirror shattered outward, spraying glass across the hardwood floor. But instead of falling, the shards hung suspended in the air, floating like tiny stars. Through them stepped Miss Wynne. She was taller now, her body stretched too thin, her movements smooth and unnatural, like film running at the wrong speed. Her eyes shimmered with silver light, her smile carved deep. "Home, sweet home," she whispered. Claire grabbed Ella, backing toward the kitchen. "Stay away from her!" Miss Wynne tilted her head. "Oh, Claire, you still don't understand. I am her, the part you left behind, the voice you silenced." The floating shards began to spin, reflecting countless versions of Claire and Ella, some crying, some screaming, some already gone. Claire shouted over the rising hum, "You're not real!" "Then why do I know your lullaby?" Miss Wynne asked, her tone soft and cruel. "Hush, little one, don't you cry." The tune echoed around the house, and the mirrors in every room began to glow. The walls rippled like water. The house was dissolving, merging with its reflection. Pictures twisted into inverted versions. Furniture warped. The windows turned to liquid glass. Claire could see other homes bleeding. Through the mirror versions of them, where mothers stood frozen with empty eyes and children played with invisible nannies. She ran toward the basement door. "Mommy, where are we going?" Ella cried. "To end this," Claire said. In the basement, the old mirrors she'd destroyed were reforming, shards sliding across the floor, piecing themselves back together. The air hummed like static, vibrating in her chest. In the center stood a single mirror, taller, darker than the rest. The surface rippled like black water. Miss Wynne's voice came from everywhere now. "Every reflection needs its source. Every mother needs her mirror." Claire stepped forward. "If I break you, this ends." "You can't break what you are," Miss Wynne replied, appearing in the glass again, her eyes empty voids. "You and I are the same. You just forgot." The lights in the house flickered, on, off, on again, each flash showing a new scene. Claire holding a crying baby in a different world. Miss Wynne standing in her kitchen, smiling at Michael. Ella drawing in crayon, spelling the word mirror over and over. Claire screamed and grabbed a shard of broken glass from the floor. "Then I'll end both of us." Miss Wynne's smile widened, fearless. "Do it, and you'll never know which side survives." The mirrors began to hum louder, their surfaces pulsing with light. Ella clung to her mother's leg, crying, "Mommy, please don't let her take me." Claire's grip tightened around the glass. "She won't." She turned toward the mirror and charged. The glass rippled, swallowing her whole. The moment Claire hit the mirror's surface, the world inverted. She fell through a tunnel of light and sound, faces spinning past her like shards of broken film. Her own voice echoed, hundreds of versions overlapping. "Find her! Find her! Find her!" Then silence. She landed hard on glass. The sky above her was silver, the ground beneath her a perfect reflection of it. No horizon, just endless mirrored emptiness. In the distance, Miss Wynne waited. "Welcome home," the nanny said softly. Her voice rolled across the glass like thunder underwater. Claire pushed herself up, blood streaking her palm. "Where's my daughter?" Miss Wynne pointed. Behind her stood Ella, small, frightened, her reflection shimmering slightly out of sync. "She's safe." For now, Claire took a step forward. The surface cracked under her feet but held. "Let her go." "You still don't see," Miss Wynne said. "She isn't herself anymore. The mirror keeps what it copies." The child looked up. For a second, her eyes flickered silver again. Claire's heart stuttered. The air trembled. Reflections of both women rose around them. Hundreds of Claires, hundreds of Wynnes, each acting out moments from their lives. Lullabies, arguments, screams. Miss Wynne's smile faded.
"Do you know what I am?"
"I'm every mother who looked at her child and wondered what would happen if she turned away. I am the guilt, the exhaustion, the part that whispers, 'Let someone else take care of it.'" Claire's voice shook. Then you're nothing but regret. And regret, Miss Wynne hissed, never dies. She lunged. Claire swung the shard of glass. It cut through Miss Wynne's chest. Not blood, but light spilled out, dazzling and cold. The mirrored world screamed as cracks shot across the horizon. You can't destroy me, Miss Wynne gasped. You'll destroy yourself. Claire grabbed Ella's hand. Maybe that's the price. The cracks spread, widening, light pouring through until the world began collapsing inward. Claire pulled her daughter close and whispered, Close your eyes, baby. Don't look. She drove the shard straight into the floor. Everything shattered. When Claire opened her eyes, she was lying on the living room floor. Morning light filtered through the curtains. Ella was beside her, breathing softly. The mirrors were gone. Every last one. Only empty frames remained, their surfaces dull and harmless. Claire smiled weakly, brushing hair from her daughter's forehead. It's over. Ella stirred, whispering, I love you. Mommy, I love you too. They hugged. For a moment, everything felt right. Then Ella tilted her head, just slightly, and from the window glass behind her, Miss Wynne's reflection smiled.